So today we want to talk about what does it mean to live in trust. Last week we talked about what is it, to be in trust, to trust that God is at work and to walk the way God gives us. What would that look like? And then we're called to set others free, to be with others in their pain, to live freely as weak, vulnerable human beings who need the God that we meet in Jesus. Today we want to explore that together. Go ahead and click on and what that means. Is it coming up?
They say it was the will of God that they came out of the jungle and built the mission. They don't understand why God has changed his mind.
I cannot hope to understand God's reasons.
Says, how does he know you know God's will? He doesn't think you speak for God. He thinks you speak for the Portuguese.
I do not personally speak for God, but I do speak for the church, which is God's instrument on earth.
He says, why don't you speak to the King of Portugal?
I have spoken to the King of Portugal. He will not listen.
He is also a king. He also will not listen. Says they were wrong ever to have trusted us. They're going to fight.
But then you must persuade them not to fight.
I failed to persuade you to fight on their behalf.
If they do fight, it is absolutely imperative that no one of you should even seem to have encouraged them to do so. And therefore all of you will return with me to Asuncion tomorrow. If anyone should disobey this, he will be excommunicated, cut off, cast out. Why must they fight? Why can't they return to the jungle?
Because this is their home. Did you know this was going to be your decision?
Yes.
Then why did you come, Lawrence?
To persuade you not to resist the transfer of the mission territories. If the Jesuits resist the Portuguese, then the Jesuit order will be expelled from Portugal. And in Portugal, then Spain, France, Italy, who knows? If your order is to survive at all, Father, the missions here must be sacrificed. What were they saying?
They said they didn't want to go back to the forest because the devil lives there. They want to stay here.
And what did you say?
I said I'd stay with him.
We watched part of this, I know, a few weeks ago, but I wanted to carry the scene beyond. The one representative from the Vatican, what is it that he is, what is his goal? What does he want to have happen? What's he trying to protect? The Jesuit order, that's all that matters. At the end of the scene there, the children come to the priest and they, Gabriel, and they, what do they say to him? What is it they want?
Stay there.
Yeah, they want to stay there. They're afraid because they feel that the devil lives in the forest. It's a place they've left. It's a place for them of fear, and this has become their home. And what does he say he's going to do? He's going to stay with them. He's going to stay with them. I think one of the central things in this scene that we see playing out is that the representative for the Vatican is so consumed with his goal of saving the Jesuit order that he cannot enter into what's going on in the lives of people there. But the other He's been a part of their lives. He's entered into their journey, and he is with them in their pain. You know, he hears the pain of being told that they have to leave, that they have to let go, leave it behind. And I think one of the central things that Jesus invites us to as we seek to walk in his yes to the way of following God, the yes of the way of the cross, is that we too are called to enter into others' pain. You know, I think I've shared with a few of you, but I remember when I was in seminary, and part of our training was to work in a hospital for a summer. It's called CPE, Clinical Pastoral Experience. And it wasn't just practicing visiting people in a hospital setting, which is where we were. It was really in so much kind of group therapy, helping us deal with our issues, the things that got in the way of our serving others. And we used to have to write what's called a verbatim. We have to write verbatim what happened in one of your meetings with one of the folks here. And so you go and visit someone, and you try and type it all up verbatim, and then you would be sharing it with a group. And I remember sharing about one of the meetings I had with a woman there. And now I don't remember, looking back, anything that was said in my meeting with her, but I remember as I was sharing about it, that the thing that hit me, and that I shared with the other students and my supervisor, was that I realized that my whole goal when I was with her was not to really hear what she was saying. It was not to enter into where she was. I was thinking about what was I supposed to say as a pastor to sound like a good pastor. Right? How many of you ever been in a place where you're just thinking about what am I supposed to say, rather than really being there? And I remember them saying to me, they said, "You know what you're doing?" And I said, "No." I said, You're confessing. And I hadn't realized it. And it was a freeing moment, because the next time I went to visit with a woman in the hospital, I decided I was just going to listen. I was just going to be there with her. And it's funny, because that first woman I met with, I don't remember anything about it, because all I was thinking about was what was I supposed to say. I didn't really listen to her at all. So I don't remember anything that she shared. But with this woman, I remember sitting down with her, and her daughter had just left from visiting her. And I sat down and I said, "How are you?" And she told me that she just found out that her cancer had metastasized to her brain, that she had weeks to live, and that her daughter was moving up her wedding so that she could be alive to be there, and she would never see her grandkids. And I remember saying, "I don't know what to say." And I remember she looked at me, and she smiled. And she reached out and she took my hand. And we both had tears in our eyes, but we were both smiling. Because I was just there with her. I didn't know what to say, and I was just honest, and I shared that with her. And somehow it just touched her deeply that I would just be there and just to hear her. And that mattered most of all, that I could just be there with her in her pain. And what I look back and I still feel bad, because, the person I visited with before, I hadn't been there with them in their pain. I couldn't open myself to that, because I had just been consumed with how was I appearing, how was I looking. And I think part of what gets in the way of us often of being with others in their pain is that we are just wrapped up in our own world and our own things, and we have a hard time letting go. And I think that's part of why it's the way of the cross, this place of letting go. I think there's something else we could. If we could click on in a second, I want to share. Maybe some volume.
You? A Kindle? Really?
No, me. 2 Kindles, really?
You're going to give your dad 2 Kindles?
No, of course not.
Who could you have possibly bought the second Kindle for?
Okay, it's for me. It's only $79.
And?
And it reads just like a paper book.
And?
It's better to receive than to give.
I don't think that's how it goes.
Looks enough.
Anybody recognize that quote? How does the quote go? Better to give than to receive. Anybody know who said that? You know where that quote comes from? It's from Jesus. It's actually not in the Gospels. It's in one of Paul's letters where Paul is quoting Jesus. It's better to give than to receive. But what does she say? It's better to receive than to give. It was really interesting to me to think about that, because I actually, this hit me, it just struck me with this season, when I looked it up on YouTube to find the videos, to be able to share it, there, people can comment on this, and someone pointed out that Jesus had said, no, it's better to give than to receive, not it's better to receive than to give. And someone responded then saying, lighten up, it's just a commercial. And that really hit me, is that, I think we don't realize how consumed, how tied up we are into this culture of materialism and consumerism, that we think we should tell people to lighten up when someone's taking the words of Jesus and twisting them around to say, you know what, it's better for me to get stuff than to give stuff. It's better for me to get to get than to give away. I don't think we realize how deeply it touches us. How much did the Kindle cost? Did we catch that? $79. How much you get? 2. Do the math. How much is that? About 160, if we with tax and whatnot. Do you know what the average person in the world lives on each day? Anybody have a guess? $1. The average person lives on $1 a day. So how many days, about how much of a year would $160 give you?
Half.
It's almost half a year livelihood for most people in the world. Right? So I think part of what we're realizing is that we are so tied up in this we don't even see it sometimes. But not only that, the folks around us, like the person commenting, that we don't even realize it. We just think that's the way it is. There's a story in Matthew 25 where Jesus is talking, and he's telling this parable. And I'm not going to read it, but you can just kind of, if you click along Ryan as I go, and if you can follow where I'm at. And he's basically talking. He says that when this day comes where the king returns, and he's going to call together all the people, and he put the sheep on his right, and the goats on his left. And he says to the sheep, he says, "Come you who are blessed into this eternal kingdom, because I was hungry and you fed me. Since I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was in prison and you visited me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was homeless and you took me in." And they all say, "Well, when the heck did we do that? When?" And he says, "Whatever you did to the least of these, around my brothers and sisters, you did it to me." And it's very interesting to me because what he's saying is, when you enter into the pain of other people around, when you enter into their struggling, their places, and you cared for them, you've done it to me. And what's really interesting to me is that Jesus doesn't say, those in prison who don't really belong there, that they may very well have done something that deserved to put in there. He says, but that doesn't matter. You're to visit them. Whatever it is, whatever reason is that they're homeless or hungry or thirsty. He says, when you do it to them, when you enter into their pain, you're doing it to me.